the rogue smile and the... Chapter 1. A reputation is a convenient thing. Tristan Vane had always known his reputation would betray him. He simply had not expected it to do so quite so efficiently. He stood in the long gallery at Winthorpe, with his back to the windows, the late afternoon light stretching his shadow across the polished floor. In his hand was a letter, creased now, not from carelessness, but from having been read once too often. Marcus watched him in silence. Julian leaned against the mantel, arms folded, his expression unreadable. Benedict stood apart, already studying the letter as though it were evidence rather than accusation. "So," Julian said at last, "they have finally decided to aim lower." Tristan's mouth curved into a familiar, easy smile, the one that had charmed dowagers, unsettled debutantes, and reassured people who never quite trusted him. "They always do," he replied lightly. "It saves effort." Marcus did not smile. "This is not amusing." "No," Tristan agreed, "but it is predictable." The rumour had arrived fully formed, as the most dangerous ones always did. It was precise, believable, and, most damningly, perfectly suited to Tristan's public character. He had compromised a woman, not deliberately, not violently, but carelessly enough to demand consequence. There was mention of a country house, of a late evening, of circumstances that could not be explained away without damaging someone's honour. The name of the woman was included, Miss Lydia Harcourt. Benedict looked up sharply. "That is... ambitious." Julian's gaze flicked to Tristan. "Do you know her?" Tristan's smile faded, just slightly. "Yes," he said. "I do." Marcus straightened. "Then start at the beginning." Tristan exhaled slowly. He had met Lydia Harcourt 3 weeks earlier at a gathering so unremarkable he could barely recall its host. She had not been the most beautiful woman in the room, nor the loudest, nor the one most obviously seeking notice. She had been the one observing. She stood near the edge of the room, speaking with an elderly aunt, her posture composed, her expression attentive rather than eager. When Tristan had joined the conversation out of idle politeness, she had met his easy charm with something far more unsettling: clarity. "You are very good at appearing careless," she had said calmly, after he had made some remark meant to amuse. He had laughed. "I assure you, I am quite sincere in my carelessness." "I doubt that," she replied, not unkindly. "You choose when to be taken lightly." It was the sort of observation most people did not make aloud. Tristan had been intrigued at once. Miss Harcourt was not wealthy. That much was obvious. Her gown was well kept but unfashionable by a season or two. Her manner bore none of the urgency of someone hunting advantage. She seemed, if anything, to be guarding her independence carefully. They spoke again later, about books, about music, about how society mistook silence for insignificance. Tristan found himself speaking more honestly than he had intended. He had not meant for the acquaintance to deepen. But it did. "You were seen together," Benedict said now, returning Tristan to the present. "Enough to make the rumour plausible." "Yes," Tristan replied. "Which was the point?" Julian's expression sharpened. "You believe this was arranged?" "I believe," Tristan said carefully, "that Lydia Harcourt has been selected because she will not easily defend herself." Marcus turned. "Why her?" Tristan hesitated. "Because she lives on the edge of acceptability," he said. "Independent, clever, not quite protected enough, and because," his voice tightened, "she has already been misjudged once." Silence followed. Benedict folded the letter. "This bears the same marks as the earlier attempts: precision, timing, a rumour designed not to destroy you, but to force your hand." Julian nodded slowly. "Marriage, or exile." Marcus's jaw set. We will not allow either. Tristan smiled again, but this time there was no ease in it. They are counting on me to be exactly what I appear. Lydia Harcourt read the notice 3 times before understanding what it implied. It was not printed. It was not circulated openly. It arrived instead in the form of sympathy, carefully worded, regretful, and edged with certainty. My dear Miss Harcourt, I trust you are bearing up. Such a difficult situation. Of course, no one blames you. No one asked if it was true. Lydia sat at the small escritoire in her lodgings, hands folded, expression composed. She had spent her life navigating assumptions. Her father's death had left her modestly provided for, but inconveniently independent. Her aunt's protection was affectionate but limited. Lydia had learned early that society did not quite know what to do with women who neither begged nor bowed. She had also learned that denial rarely mattered once a story suited its audience. The door opened quietly. Her aunt entered, face pale with concern. Lydia, there is talk. Yes, Lydia said. I am aware. They say Lord Tristan. I know what they say. Her aunt hesitated. Is there anything I should understand? Lydia rose slowly. There is, she said, but not what they believe. Tristan went to see her that evening. Not because it was wise, because it was necessary. He found Lydia standing by the window, the room lit by the last of the fading light. She did not turn when he entered. I wondered how long it would take you, she said calmly. He stopped a careful distance away. I am sorry. She nodded once. So am I. I did not intend. I know, she interrupted. That is what makes it effective. He studied her profile, the steady composure, the lack of accusation. They are trying to force me to choose. Yes, Lydia said, and me to be chosen. The words hung between them. I will not marry you to save myself, Tristan said quietly. Her shoulders eased, just slightly. I would have been disappointed if you had. He met her gaze then. But I will not allow you to be ruined for their convenience. Lydia's expression sharpened. That sounds dangerously like protection. It is not, Tristan replied. It is defiance. For the first time she smiled. Then, she said softly, we are aligned. Outside, the bells of the evening hour rang out across the city, and somewhere beyond the walls of that quiet room, the final game had begun. Chapter 2. The Shape of a Trap. By the end of the week, London had decided what had happened. It always did. The story sharpened as it travelled, smoothed at the edges, filled in where imagination proved more useful than fact. Names were whispered with sympathetic regret. Conclusions were drawn with an air of reluctant certainty. No one asked for proof. Proof was unnecessary when a narrative fit so comfortably. Tristan Vane was, after all, precisely the sort of man to be careless. And Lydia Harcourt, intelligent, independent, inconveniently unguarded, was exactly the sort of woman who might be misunderstood without consequence to anyone important. The cruelty of it lay not in outrage, but in reasonableness. It is most unfortunate, people said. Of course no one blames her, they added, and he must do the honourable thing. The honourable thing. Tristan heard the phrase twice before noon on the 3rd day, and by the evening he understood the true genius of the scheme. It did not demand disgrace. It offered redemption, on conditions. Marriage would resolve the matter. A discreet withdrawal from society would suffice. A public denial would only worsen matters. It was a trap built not to destroy him outright, but to narrow his choices until only surrender appeared sensible. At Winthorpe, the brothers gathered again. Marcus stood at the window, arms folded behind his back, gaze fixed on the lawn below as though sheer concentration might impose order on the world beyond it. "This has moved too quickly," he said. "It has been seeded for weeks." Benedict nodded and guided. "The same hands are at work, subtle, patient, legally minded." Julian's expression was grim. "They are careful not to accuse. They merely assume, which leaves us very little to refute." Tristan leaned against the back of a chair, his customary ease replaced by something quieter, harder. "They want me cornered." Marcus turned. "Then we will not allow it." Tristan met his brother's gaze steadily. "They are counting on me to accept a solution that protects the family at the expense of Lydia Harcourt." Julian's jaw tightened. "And you will not?" "No," Tristan said. "I will not." Benedict studied him closely. "Then you must be prepared for them to escalate." Tristan smiled faintly. "I believe they already have." Lydia Harcourt received the invitation the following morning. It arrived by a respectable hand, sealed with a crest that signified influence without accountability. The language was courteous, even kind, an invitation to spend several weeks at a country house owned by a distant connection, until matters might be allowed to settle. It was exile dressed as concern. Lydia read the letter carefully, then folded it with precision and placed it on the desk beside her. She had expected this. What unsettled her was not the suggestion itself, but the implication beneath it, that her absence would make the story easier to manage. She would be removed from view. Tristan would be pressed to resolve matters quietly, and whatever truth existed would fade into irrelevance. Her aunt found her still seated there some minutes later. "They mean well," her aunt said gently, though her eyes betrayed doubt. "It may be easier for a time." Lydia rose. "Easier for whom?" Her aunt sighed. "My dear, the world is not always kind to women who insist upon clarity." "I have noticed," Lydia replied. "You must consider your future." "I am," Lydia said calmly. "That is why I will not go." Her aunt stared. "You cannot remain here under this scrutiny." "I can," Lydia said, "and I will." The older woman hesitated. "What of Lord Tristan?" Lydia's expression softened, only slightly. "He has his own battle to fight." Tristan came to see her that evening. This time, he did not pretend the visit was harmless. He arrived openly in daylight's lingering glow, his presence unmistakable. If the world was determined to misinterpret, he would not allow it to do so in whispers alone. Lydia met him in the small parlour, her posture composed, her gaze direct. "They have asked me to disappear," she said without preamble. "I know," Tristan replied. "They have suggested I make amends." She studied him. "And will you?" "Not on their terms," he said. Lydia nodded once. "Good." He watched her carefully. "You are not afraid?" "I am," she corrected, "but I am no longer surprised." Tristan exhaled slowly. "They intend to force a public choice." "Yes," Lydia said, "between your reputation and my ruin." He stepped closer, still careful, still restrained. "I will not accept that bargain." "Nor will I," Lydia replied. For a moment, something unspoken passed between them, recognition, perhaps, or the steadying knowledge of shared resolve. "They are counting on my silence," Tristan said, "on my agreement to tidy this away." Lydia's eyes sharpened. "Then they have misunderstood you." He smiled faintly. "They have misunderstood us both." The escalation came, as Benedict predicted, with ruthless precision. A note appeared in a discreet circular, read by those who preferred their scandals couched in concern rather than sensation. It did not accuse, it lamented. "There is talk of an understanding," it read. "One hopes the matter will be concluded honourably." The implication was clear. Time was running out. Marcus summoned the family that night. "They are preparing to present marriage as the only reasonable conclusion," he said. "If Tristan refuses, Lydia's reputation will be permanently marked." Julian leaned forward. "Then we remove their certainty." Benedict nodded. "We force the truth into daylight." Tristan looked from one brother to the next. "They will not expect Lydia to speak." Marcus's gaze hardened. "Then perhaps it is time she did." Lydia did not sleep that night. She sat by the window, watching the city settle into its uneasy quiet, weighing the cost of what must come next. She had lived carefully, deliberately, believing restraint her safest armor. Now restraint would only preserve the lie. When Tristan returned the following morning, she was already resolved. "I will not be hidden," she said quietly, "and I will not be spoken for." Tristan studied her. "They will be unkind. I know. They will question your motives. I am accustomed to that. They will attempt to discredit you." She met his gaze steadily. "Then they will have to do so in public." Tristan felt something shift. Admiration, certainly, and something deeper still. "You would risk everything," he said. Lydia's voice was calm. "I already have." He nodded slowly. "Then we will do this together." The plan was simple, which made it dangerous. A gathering had been arranged, one of those carefully neutral assemblies where conversation and influence mingled freely. Invitations had been extended widely enough to ensure attention, narrowly enough to maintain control. It was there the final pressure would be applied. It was there Tristan would be expected to submit, and it was there Lydia Harcourt would speak. As Tristan left her lodgings, he felt the weight of what lay ahead settle fully upon him. The rogue smile that had once shielded him from consequence would not suffice now. For the first time, he did not reach for it. He reached instead for something rarer: courage. Chapter 3. The moment they expect you to bow. The gathering had been planned with exquisite care. It was neither a ball nor a rout, too public for comfort, too private for challenge. A musical evening, ostensibly. Chairs arranged in polite arcs, candles placed to flatter rather than expose. Guests selected not for warmth, but for reach. If something were settled here, it would remain settled. Tristan arrived precisely on time. He did not enter with his usual ease. There was no lazy confidence in his step, no smile offered to soften expectation. He moved instead with deliberate composure, dressed impeccably, his manner calm enough to invite interpretation. Julian, already present, met his gaze from across the room and inclined his head once, barely perceptible, but unmistakable. Marcus stood nearer the wall, speaking quietly with a gentleman of influence, his posture relaxed but watchful. Benedict had chosen a seat near the edge, his expression neutral, eyes alert. Lydia Harcourt entered last. Not by accident. She wore a gown of understated elegance, nothing to invite remark, nothing to apologize for. Her head was held high, her expression composed. She did not cling to an aunt or seek a protector's arm. She walked alone, as though she belonged there by right. The room noticed. Conversation faltered, just for a moment. Then resumed, adjusted, sharpened. Tristan felt the shift immediately. He watched as eyes moved from him to Lydia and back again, as assumptions aligned themselves with anticipation. Lady Davenant observed from her place near the pianoforte, her expression serene. This, Tristan realized, was the moment they expected him to bow. The music began. A young woman sang, sweetly, nervously, while the audience offered its polite attention. The performance was competent, forgettable, precisely what the evening required. When it ended, Lady Davenant rose. Her timing was flawless. "My dear friends," she said smoothly, "before we disperse, there is a matter of some delicacy I believe we would all wish resolved, if only to put an end to unnecessary speculation." The room stilled. Tristan did not move. Lady Davenant turned slightly, her gaze landing upon him with practiced sympathy. Lord Tristan has, I believe, something he would like to say. All eyes followed hers. This was it. The moment prepared so carefully that resistance would appear obstinate, even cruel. The words expected of him were simple: regret, responsibility, resolution, marriage, or departure, or silence. Tristan stepped forward. For a heartbeat, the old instinct stirred, the smile that had eased so many situations before they grew sharp. He felt it hovering, ready to be summoned. He let it go. "Before I speak," he said calmly, "there is someone else who should be heard." The room murmured. Lady Davenant's expression did not change, but her eyes sharpened. Tristan turned. "Miss Harcourt," he said evenly, "would you be willing to address the room?" The silence that followed was absolute. Lydia felt it press against her chest, heavy and expectant. She had known this moment would come, had prepared herself for it, and still the weight of so many watching eyes was formidable. She stepped forward. "I would," she said quietly. Lady Davenant smiled, thinly. "My dear Miss Harcourt, I fear this is most irregular." "So is the rumour concerning me," Lydia replied calmly. "Yet it has circulated without objection." A ripple of unease passed through the room. Lydia stood with her hands folded loosely before her, posture straight, voice steady. "I have been the subject of considerable speculation," she continued, "regarding my conduct, my character, my supposed need for resolution." She paused, allowing the words to settle. "I will speak plainly. Lord Tristan Vane has never compromised me. There has been no impropriety, no understanding, no circumstance requiring remedy." A stir of reaction followed: surprise, skepticism, interest. Lady Davenant's voice was gentle. "My dear, no one doubts your sincerity, but perception is not evidence," Lydia said calmly, "nor is it truth." Tristan remained silent. This was her ground now. "You have been led to believe," Lydia continued, "that my independence renders me vulnerable, that my lack of fortune leaves me malleable, that I would welcome any arrangement that restores my reputation." Her gaze moved across the room, measured, unflinching. "You are mistaken." A murmur followed, sharper this time. Lady Davenant rose slightly from her seat. "Miss Harcourt, I must insist." "That I remain quiet?" Lydia asked gently. "That I accept protection at the cost of my autonomy?" She turned then, not to Lady Davenant, but to the audience as a whole. "I will not." The words rang, not loudly but clearly. Tristan felt something in him steady. Lady Davenant smiled again. "Courage is admirable, my dear, but society requires assurances." "Indeed," came Benedict's calm voice from the edge of the room. He rose. "Which is why," he continued, "I believe it prudent to clarify how this rumour originated." All heads turned. Lady Davenant's smile did not falter, but it no longer reached her eyes. Benedict held a folded paper. The circumstances described in recent speculation rely upon a sequence of events that did not occur. A visit that was not made, a meeting that was not private. He paused, and a witness who has since admitted her account was encouraged. A collective intake of breath followed. Julian stepped forward. "Encouraged," he repeated mildly, "by someone with a vested interest in a particular outcome." Marcus added quietly, "An outcome that would force a resolution both swift and convenient." Lady Davenant laughed softly. "This is most dramatic." "Not at all," Benedict replied. "Merely factual." He extended the paper. not to Lady Davenant, but to a gentleman seated near the centre. "Sir," he said politely, "you were present when the original account was relayed. You may confirm whether the witness in question has since altered her statement." The gentleman shifted, visibly uncomfortable. I was informed there were discrepancies." Lady Davenant's voice cooled. "You exceed your place." "Perhaps," Benedict said, "but truth rarely concerns itself with place." Tristan spoke then. "Let me be clear," he said calmly. "I will not marry to appease a lie, nor will I allow Miss Harcourt to be removed for the sake of convenience." He met Lady Davenant's gaze directly. "If society wishes to judge me for refusing to submit to coercion, it may do so openly." Lady Davenant stood fully now. "You are choosing disgrace." Tristan's voice was steady. "No, I am choosing honesty." The room had shifted. The certainty Lady Davenant relied upon, the quiet momentum of assumption, had stalled. Not everyone was convinced, but enough were uncertain, enough were thinking. Lydia felt the pressure ease, not vanish but loosen. She turned to Tristan, her voice low. "You realize this may cost you everything." He met her gaze. "I know." Her eyes softened, not with gratitude, but recognition. "Then," she said quietly, "I am glad I did not stand alone." The gathering ended without resolution, which was, Benedict later remarked, its own form of victory. As guests departed, voices hushed and speculative, Lady Davenant remained seated, her composure intact, her eyes calculating. This was not finished, but it was no longer controlled. Tristan stepped out into the cool night air with Lydia beside him, the city's sounds settling around them. She did not speak at once. Neither did he. At last Lydia said, "They will try again." "Yes," Tristan replied. "They will escalate." "Yes." She stopped walking and turned to him. "Then so will we." He smiled, not the rogue smile of old, but something quieter and far more dangerous. "Indeed," he said. Above them, the lamps burned steadily, indifferent to reputation and rumour alike. And somewhere in the city, plans were already shifting, rearranging themselves for a final confrontation that would not be settled by silence. Chapter 4. What Cannot Be Undone. The reckoning came quietly, not with raised voices or dramatic exposure, but with the steady accumulation of certainty, the kind that left no room for retreat. Those who had relied upon silence now found it working against them. Within days of the gathering, questions began to circulate, not the careless kind, but the careful ones. Inquiries made behind closed doors. Letters written and answered with measured formality. A witness, once confident in her account, amended it again, this time with notable precision. Another declined to repeat a story she had previously found useful. Lady Davenant did not retreat. She adjusted. That, perhaps, was her greatest mistake. Tristan learned of her final move not through rumour, but through formality. A summons, respectfully phrased, carefully neutral. An invitation to meet with a small council of influential figures who, while lacking official authority, wielded something far more potent: consensus. The implication was unmistakable. He would be offered a resolution. He would be expected to accept it. Marcus read the letter twice before looking up. They mean to end this on their terms. Julian's mouth tightened. They believe pressure will succeed where persuasion did not. Benedict folded his arms. They will attempt to isolate him. Tristan listened in silence. "And you?" Marcus asked quietly. Tristan met his brother's gaze steadily. "I will attend." Julian frowned. "Alone?" "No," Tristan replied. "With the truth." Lydia Harcourt was not invited, which told her everything. She sat at the small escritoire in her lodgings, reading Tristan's brief note again, its language careful, its meaning unmistakable. I must go. I will not accept what they offer, but they intend to make the cost clear. She rose and crossed to the window, watching the city move as it always did, indifferent to justice, relentless in its momentum. For most of her life, Lydia had understood herself as a woman acted upon. Circumstance, assumption, convenience. She had resisted where she could, endured where she must. Now, for the first time, she saw clearly what was being asked of Tristan. Not marriage, not exile, something far more insidious, submission. They would allow him to remain, provided he distanced himself publicly from her, provided he allowed the narrative to stand, provided he accepted protection at the cost of integrity, and she would be the price. Lydia closed the letter carefully. No, she said aloud. The council convened in a private room, its atmosphere restrained, its purpose unmistakable. Lady Davenant was already present when Tristan arrived. She rose this time, her smile warm with reassurance. My dear lord, thank you for coming. We are all most anxious to bring this regrettable matter to a close. Tristan inclined his head. As am I. The men present, gentlemen of consequence, though none inclined to risk their own reputations unnecessarily, settled into their seats. One of them spoke first. There has been confusion, a situation that has grown uncomfortable. Indeed, Tristan replied calmly. Lady Davenant took up the thread. Which is why we have agreed upon a solution that preserves dignity on all sides. Tristan waited. You will issue a statement, she continued, expressing regret for any misunderstanding. Miss Harcourt will withdraw from society for a time. The matter will fade. And my role in this? Tristan asked. Lady Davenant smiled. You will be commended for your restraint. Tristan felt the final piece fall into place. They were not offering peace. They were offering permission to continue unchallenged. No, he said. The word landed softly, but decisively. Lady Davenant's smile froze. I beg your pardon? I will not allow a lie to stand because it is convenient, Tristan said evenly. Nor will I accept protection purchased with someone else's erasure. A murmur passed through the room. One of the gentlemen leaned forward. You risk much by refusing. I know, Tristan replied. Lady Davenant's eyes hardened. You will be isolated. Then I will be honest, Tristan said. Silence followed. Then another voice spoke, unexpected. Benedict. He stepped forward, documents in hand. Before any decision is rendered, he said calmly, there is information this council should consider. Lady Davenant turned sharply. You were not invited. No, Benedict replied, but truth rarely waits for permission. He laid the papers out, the altered testimony, the payments, the correspondence, carefully traced, meticulously verified. One of the men reached for the documents, frowning as he read. This suggests intent, he said slowly. Indeed, Benedict replied. Another added quietly, and orchestration. Lady Davenant rose. This is absurd. Julian spoke then, his tone mild. On the contrary, it is familiar. Marcus joined him. We have seen this pattern before. The room shifted. Certainty, Lady Davenant's greatest ally, fractured. This changes matters, one of the gentlemen said at last. Lady Davenant's composure faltered, not dramatically, but perceptibly. She had miscalculated. The aftermath was swift and mercilessly polite. No accusations were announced, no condemnations issued, but invitations ceased. Doors closed. Influence, once exerted effortlessly, met quiet resistance. Lady Davenant did not fall. She simply vanished from relevance. which in her world was far worse. Tristan found Lydia that evening where he expected her, by the window, watching the light fade from the city. She turned when he entered, her expression searching. "It is finished," he said quietly. She studied him. "At what cost?" "My reputation," he replied. "As I knew it." She exhaled slowly. "And you do not regret it?" "No," Tristan said. "I regret only that I did not choose sooner." She stepped closer, not touching, but near enough that the space between them felt deliberate. "They offered you safety," Lydia said. "They offered me silence," Tristan replied. "There is a difference." Her voice softened. "You chose me." "I chose honesty," he said. "You came with it." For a moment, she said nothing. Then Lydia Harcourt did something she had not allowed herself since the rumours began. She smiled, fully, freely, without restraint. "Then," she said quietly, "I choose you." Tristan reached for her hand, not as rescue, not as claim, but as partnership. She placed hers in his without hesitation. Their wedding was not grand, it was intentional. A small church, close friends, family gathered not in spectacle, but solidarity. Julian watched with satisfaction, Marcus with pride, Benedict with quiet relief. Lydia stood beside Tristan, not transformed, not elevated, but unchanged in all the ways that mattered. When they spoke their vows, there was no flourish, only clarity, only choice. Epilogue. Months later, the four brothers walked the grounds at Winthorpe together. The season had turned. The house felt settled at last. Julian glanced toward Tristan. "You realize," he said dryly, "that you are no longer allowed to appear careless." Tristan smiled, softly this time. "I never was." Lydia joined them, her presence effortless, assured. The family, once tested by scandal and secrecy, stood intact. Because love, they had learned, was not the absence of danger, but the decision to face it openly. The end. With the Earl's four sons, for listening through whispered scandals and hard-won truths, through moments of doubt and courage, and for walking beside these four brothers as each found love in a world that so often tested their honour. From grand drawing rooms to quiet parlours, from rumour to redemption, your presence has been part of what gave these stories their heart. If you've enjoyed these clean, emotionally rich Regency romances, I invite you to subscribe and remain with us. More love stories, more quiet bravery, and more candle-lit worlds await. Tales of devotion.